Welcome to a brand new series where I take you behind the scenes to show you how the scheduling works for the M4J network. This is the M4J Network Timetable and Database Project, something that has never been attempted before on openttd. Hello everyone, it's M4J here and welcome to a brand new series. I've already said it in the intro, but I'm going to say it again here. This is something, it's just a little peek behind the curtain as to how I make the M4J network operate. These first 3 episodes are all going to be about the existing system that I use for scheduling vehicles. So these trains here at Guard City St. Elizabeth, these all operate using this timetable program that I have developed. Now this program is not perfect, and actually as we go through each episode I'll show you how it works, and then I'll talk about what I don't like about it and what I want to change, because I'm currently in the process of developing a new system that will supersede the old one, and this new system should make things a little bit easier. If you've been watching the M4J Network series, the new M4J Network series, you will know that there have been some issues on the network. It's the start of the day here, so I can't really show you exactly what those are. But essentially we have a problem where fast trains are chasing slow trains and certain vehicles were not being logged as being in their platforms correctly, which led to an issue, particularly over here at Nottingburg Springs, where a train was sat at this signal here for 5 minutes waiting for this platform to vacate. That's obviously not ideal. I'm hoping that in showing you, I don't know why I said that weirdly then, I'm hoping that by showing you the existing structure and how it all works, 2 things will happen. 1, I might notice what the mistake is and be able to fix it, and then that will make my life a little bit easier moving forward. Or 2, one of you guys will notice what's wrong and suggest how to fix it, and that will make my life easier going forwards. The whole point of doing this, I think I've explained this in videos before, there's something called the rubber duck principle, which is I can never remember the name of the book, but there's a book where a character is a coder and he explains his code to a rubber duck, and in doing so he can find the faults because as he's saying it out loud it triggers something in his brain. You guys are my rubber ducks, and I don't mean that as an insult, I mean that as thank you very much for volunteering to be my rubber ducks. So I'm going to show you the first part of today's project, which is the Journey Creator. I forgot the name of the program then. That was a good start, wasn't it? So there are 3 programs that I use to create all of my schedules. The first one is the Journey Creator, the second one is the Timetable Generator, and the third one is the Conflict Detector and Resolver. I'm over here at Guard City St. Michael because I'm actually using a live case study. At the time of recording this episode, I'm in the middle of recording an episode of the M4J network, where we are running trains from Guard City St. Michael here, right the way down the west coast to Sanley Central. We are setting up the Western Reaches South franchise. I wanted to show you guys a real case study rather than just showing you an existing one, because I've already made some small tweaks to the system and I want to see if that actually helps with solving some problems that I have. So I've already run all the timing trains out of Guard City St. Michael and also out of Sanley. So let's head over to the spreadsheet that I've created and I'll show you what happens from there. So this is the famous spreadsheet that I've talked about in previous episodes of the M4J network. There are 7 columns across the top here. You only need to worry about the first 5, A to E. F and G, they are calculated automatically, so you don't need to worry about that. And in case of the M4J network, this number here, the 1980, that stays as is. If you wanted to use this spreadsheet for your own games and your ticks per minute is not 1980, you can change this number and everything else will be automatically calculated. There are instructions here because I realized this looks quite complicated. These instructions were only really written for if this spreadsheet became publicly available. If the new system that I'm developing works, then you probably won't need to ever use this spreadsheet. Therefore, this is kind of obsolete. But I've left it here anyway, just in case. It helps now. You can pause the video if you want and read it. It explains it a little bit better than I'm probably going to now, because I've spent weeks writing this. Essentially, the 5 columns here are service name, which is basically the notes column, but I had to give it a more exciting name than that. Station, waypoint, depot name. Type, which is fairly straightforward, depot, station or waypoint. Stopping time in minutes, we'll come to that in a second, and then time traveled in ticks. The notes one here, I set this up purely because I had an episode, I think it was the Western Reaches North in fact, where, because it's quite a linear main line, I had lots and lots of vehicles running on the same section of track, and I couldn't keep track as to what was what. And originally I just coloured the columns, and then I was like, hang on a second, I can just put a notes column in there. It required a little bit of recoding in the program I'm going to show you in a second, but effectively it worked. So this is the notes section now. So this train here, which runs up to row 7, this is the Sanley TMD, Traction Maintenance Depot, or Traction Maintenance Depot, whatever one of those it is, to Sanley Central, and it obviously returns as well. It's an express timing train, and it runs with a class 370. These are all things that will eventually be stored in our database, but we're not talking about the database today, we're talking about the existing system. You've then got the station names next to it. So these are all the names of all the places that trains call at. This is probably the best example because it's got stations, depots, and waypoints all listed. And in some cases, such as Dinstown, this is actually a station, but in this case it's acting as a waypoint, which is what column C is. Column C is the type. There are 3 different types. I think you can read that. It's a little bit small. And then the 4th one here is just an empty value, which you can see we've got in this row here. D is the stop time. This is important, not so much for the timing trains, but for when we actually turn these timing trains into something a little bit more useful. I've just set 10 as a default value. You can set this to whatever you want for your timing trains because they will never get used in the actual program. Eventually, when we set up the actual running trains, we will change these numbers, but again, it says in the instructions you leave the first one blank. That will become clearer in a second as well. Then we have probably the most important one here, which is column E. Column E is the time traveled in ticks. Now the way this works is, you'll see the first one here is blank. So this GSMI fast approach 1, the time traveled in ticks is from the previous line to this one. So from Guard City St. Michael to GSMI fast approach 1, it takes 1,188 ticks. That's, I think, pretty straightforward. I've had a couple of people say that's not how they would do it, but for me it's always, I've seen this in other timetables. That's why I've used this method. The time from previous is basically what this is. And then you've got time traveled in minutes and time traveled in seconds. And as I said, these are very carefully calculated. I could get into the nuts and bolts as to how exactly that works, but I'm going to do it in a minute because we're going to fill in some columns in a second ourselves. So these are all the timing trains. There are 7 timing trains that have been operated on the Western Reaches South for various reasons, whether it's a different speed of vehicle, a different route, or a different service designator. So this one here, this is a live timing train. This is from Guard City St. Michael right the way down to Sanley Central, and technically I also added in the sidings as well. When you watch because this comes out before the M4J Network episode that this is timing trains for, but when you watch that episode you'll see what those sidings are and how the stations are laid out and things like that. Again, I'm not going to dwell on that now because the episode covers it quite nicely, but these are all the running times here. These have all been converted into minutes for me. So let's just click on this for a second. I think you can read the bar at the top, the formula bar up here. You can see it's quite a complicated formula, but it actually does quite a simple thing. So it takes this number here, the 4,300, and actually, can I find one that's a little closer to being exact? Probably not. 4,363. It divides that by the ticks per minute up here, which is 1,980, but it also runs an if command. So what does it do there? So yeah, if the number equals 0, my God, I've got to remember what this is. The number equals 0, keep it at 0. If the number is, oh my God. Yeah, no, I actually can't remember off the top of my head what this does. I created this formula a long time ago. I've been using it for a few months now. The important thing is it converts the ticks into minutes and then rounds it to the nearest half minute. So if this Again, let's find one. So this one here, technically, this would round down to 0. And I think actually that's what the formula here is doing. If it equals 0, don't make it 0, effectively. Round it up to 0.5. Because this number here would be a really small decimal, and that would be less than 0.25, sorry, which would then round it down to 0. We don't want that because no times should ever be 0. The minimum time is half a minute, 30 seconds. So it ensures that that is the case. There are ones, this one here, for example, 2.5 minutes. This might be between 2.25 and 2.75 minutes. And therefore it rounds to the nearest half minute, which would be 2.5. It also rounds it to seconds. That's just so that you can see the exact number of seconds. And that is a literal divide it by the number of ticks times it by 60 to get the seconds. And I think actually that takes the rounded number here. So that's not quite correct. Maybe. No, E40. No, it is this one. It's supposed to divide it by the number up here though, so I've done that wrong. I'll have to go fix that, because again, not everyone has the same number of ticks as I do. I've done a really botched way of explaining that, but essentially this is how this spreadsheet works. It works very well. I get some very accurate timings from that, which are then completely botched by being rounded to the nearest half minute, but that's how the real world does it, so that's how the M4J network does it. You'll see here even, look, there's 6 seconds between Sannington through and Powington Western Reaches. Literally 6 seconds, but that gets rounded to 30, so there's a 24-second leeway basically between the real time and the working time. I won't go into sectional running times and working times and things like that. That's something Master Trams knows far better than I do. So these are all the timing trains. What we're now going to do, because I've actually, as I mentioned, tweaked the system slightly for this particular operation. Normally what I do, and can I show you another example? I think I can. Let's get the Northwestern times up. This is the Northwestern franchise. This is the North Valleys line, the one that doesn't work technically. What I've done here is you'll see we've got station, station, station. These are the actual schedules set up. So the Sunnington to Beffingway using the 47 and the Mark II coaches. This is the actual working timetable. And you see it gets to Beffingway here, turns around, comes back. These also have the stopping times. We want to do that now for the other franchise, Western Reaches South. But to get these timing trains here, what I've done, and I am going to do this for the working timetables as well, is I haven't set it to stop at these stations. It goes straight through. Therefore, and there will be, again, a couple of inaccuracies because of this, but I feel like the timetable will cancel itself out, which is why I've done it this way. For example, this is a non-stopper. It goes from GSMI right the way down to Kidinghatton Airport Parkway, does not stop anywhere along the way. But I know if I was to take this and set this up and change, Dintown to a station and have a stopping time here, this running time won't change by a huge amount. And anything that is lost here, so if it takes longer to stop here, it should be made up somewhere else by the rounding. So 2841 is a minute and a half. 2762 is also a minute and a half. So let's say this becomes 29 something, that might still be a minute and a half. And if this becomes, 29 something as well, then this will also be a minute and a half. So actually in this side of things, we haven't lost anything, despite the fact on this side of things, we've added like 300 ticks to the operation. That's my plan. That's my assumption. That's my hope. So what we're going to do, I also need to get, actually I'm going to get it up on my other screen here. You don't need to see this part. I'm going to get up my franchise stopping pattern sheet, and I'm going to show you in real time how I plan out one of these. So the first one I would have done was the non-stopper from GSMI to Sanley, but we actually already have that. This train here is that one. So we could just copy and paste this, I suppose. So why don't we just do that? We'll bring this all the way down, because even the stop times here are going to be identical. So we can just copy all of that, come right down to the bottom. It's quite a long spreadsheet, this one, and it's about to get longer. We're probably going to need another 1,000 rows, but I'm going to add just 100 for now. And then up to here, and paste. I'm then going to change the name of this so that it matches. There we go. Guard City St. Michael to Sanley Central Express, class 370. In terms of the stop times, this is going to change as well. I want the train, so basically it's going to run from St. Michael to Sanley, and then it's going to go sit in the sidings for an hour. In terms of the stop times at each end here, I set them to 10. Normally I set them to 5 if they're commuter trains. I set them to 10 for express trains. Completely irrelevant, and you'll see why in the next episode, not this one. I now need to go away and set up all of the timetables, well, you know, all of the schedules, sorry, for these trains. So I'm just going to do that really quickly. You don't need to see that. It's very boring. It's going to be a lot of copy and pasting, which is why I did it this way now, so that I've got all of the accurate timings and I can set up schedules exactly how I want them, just using copy and paste and not having to manually input all of these cells, which I had to do the first time, but now I don't have to do it again, which is awesome. I love that a lot. So I'm going to go away and do that. I'll do a little bit more of explaining, and then we'll skip over to the other tab, and I'm going to show you how the program works. All right, a little while later, I have filled them all in, and I think I've done it correctly, but we may find out a little bit later on through this process that mistakes have been made, which is another reason why I want to come up with a better system for doing this, so that right now you don't see the mistakes until a long way down the line, whereas in future I want the mistake to be flagged immediately. As you can see, there are lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of lines here. We have 1,334 rows, I believe, not including the title at the top. Yep, 1,335 in total, but 1,334 is actually filled with stuff. All of these are done. We've got, how many is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13 services. All listed now on here through the copy and paste. The only thing I had to change was the stopping times here. Had to flag these as stations, not waypoints. That's very important for a future part of the process. And I also had to make sure that these asterisks, by the way, mark the turnaround between an outward and return leg of a journey. That's also very important. I had to make sure that the first line here is 0 across the board. And that's also very important. Now this is done, we get to do the easy bit. And I mean that literally. We get to do the very easy bit indeed. So we're going to come up here to the top. We're going to go File, Download. And we're going to download it as an XLSX file. That's going to download it to my drive. There we go. Done. We're then going to hop over to this tab, which is the train journey scheduler. It's actually the journey creator. I need to change that. We're going to hit choose file. Now, I don't think you're going to see the window that pops up. You are not. That's fine. Going to head over to the downloads. We're going to select the file that we've just created. And there it is. Western Reaches South Timings.xlsx. And then we're going to hit process. And this is it. These are all the timings that we've just set up. What you'll notice is this is the notes in that left-hand column. This one here. It's created a nice little thing here. It's got the start and end point here at the top, and then underneath that it's got the round trip time 35 minutes, which is these two times here plus these two times here, and that is, as you can see, 35 minutes. That means if we ran this journey here, it takes 35 minutes for the train to come out of the depot into the station, wait for 10 minutes, and then travel back and wait for 10 minutes. Very nice. Where it matters more is, that's another timing train, so it will be, in fact these are all the timing trains at the top, which is a little annoyance. I don't want it to include timing trains in the future, although it's handy to have them, but for this section here I don't want it to have them. This is the first one here. So Guard City St. Michael to Sanley Central, it's a 160-minute round trip, but 1 hour of that is spent in the sidings at Sanley. So it's actually a 100-minute round trip, which is pretty good, pretty realistic, I would say. A 2-hour journey pretty much from there to back again, because these times here are going to change. Bear in mind, this is also a 0. That will change in the next episode of this as well. And yeah, we have all of our journeys. They have all been created for us by this program, which, not to blow my own trumpet or anything, but I think this is one of the bits I like the most, is when this bit works. And it's very satisfying to look at. 145-minute round trip between Sanley and Fort Flonwood on the all-stopper. It's a much slower train than the other two types. And again, when you watch the episode, you'll see. We're then going to go here to the designate file name. I need to remember what these are called. Bear with me 1 second. Let's go Northwestern, source files. I think it's just called Northwestern. Yeah, so this would be Western Reaches South. Western Reaches South. And then we hit download again. And that's it. We're done. Simple as that. That is the journey creator in its entirety. From setting up all the timings, which is the longest part of the process. If anyone was wondering why I was dragging my feet making the M4J Network videos, this is why. The other thing is, once we have the services set up in the game again, I have to go through and manually take these travel times and insert them into the schedule of the train. So not so much these ones. Let's again scroll down to an actual schedule. This one, Sanley Central to Sunnington via Menningley Market. So I have to go through and manually add these timings, which is not too bad. You double click on the thing, you hit the number, you hit enter. And I will be doing it as minutes actually, so it will be, 1 or 2.5 or whatever it might be. So this is the longest part of the process, and that bit at the end is the longest part of the process. This bit though, really easy. I'm very happy about this bit, and it's very accurate too. It knows if something is a 0.5 of a minute for whatever reason. Here, 113.5, it knows and it adds it, and it's really satisfying. I love it. It's awesome. And that is the first episode of this process complete. Next time around, we're going to look at the timetable generator. So we're going to go through, not all of them, but we're going to go through the majority of these, maybe one for each type of train. So one for an express, one for a semi-fast, and one for a stopper. And I'm going to show you how I create the actual timetables and how the program assists in that process. So until then, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. And of course, if you're interested in this series. I know it's not for everyone, but if you are watching, thank you very much. And if you've spotted any mistakes that I've made throughout all of this, or an easier way of doing it, by all means, let me know down in the comments below. And you can also just comment anything else to do with this if you so wish. Besides that, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Like I said, we've got another episode of this coming up next week, and we've got the 3rd episode coming up the week after. So by all means, subscribe so that you don't miss those when they go up. If you have already subscribed to the channel, thank you for your continued support. It's very much appreciated. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and until next time, I will see you soon.